as you know, this is the Special Settlement Consumer Lending Committee. This committee's been in place since, I believe, for 2 years. Maybe this is the 3rd year that we've been in place, and we've heard, seems like forever, but we've heard a lot of the arguments for and against some of this legislation, but we're going to try to go forward now. Just to remind everybody, a lot of us up here have there's committees that start here at 4 o'clock that a lot of us have to be in attendance to, so we're going to try to move through these. Delegate Hayes has sat here patiently through the entire committee on commerce and labor. He was almost sat here long enough to become a member. So I sat here longer than the members, some of them. But anyway, you have House Bill 1817. You want to come on up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 1817 increases from $2,500 to $4,000 the threshold under which consumer finance loans are subject to a maximum interest rate of 36% per year. Subprime lenders have begun using the consumer finance lending statute to issue unsecured subprime loans in excess of $2,500 because at $2,500 and above, no rate cap applies. This can create a debt cycle trap for vulnerable low-income Virginians. Raising the threshold to which the cap applies, fewer consumer finance loans will be issued for this purpose. The history of this situation is that consumer finance loans are designed to help customers afford consumer products, furniture, electronics, etc. with low in-house financing. The threshold and cap were originally established in 1995, likely to assist credit card companies such as Capital One that were not affiliated with a traditional bank. At the time, loans under $2,500 were capped at $3,600, 36%, and loans from $2,501 to $6,000 were subject only to a loan agreement, no cap. In 2001, the $6,000 maximum was removed, allowing for any loan amount in excess of $2,500 to be uncapped.
So you're wanting to limit it at you want to limit it at $4,000, is that correct?
Right, because I guess looking back in 1995, the amount of money that one could, let's say for example, purchasing furniture for your home, you could probably outfit the den, kitchen, dinette, and the bedroom for $2,500. By today's terms, $2,500, those individuals who have to use these type of institutions for loans, they are unable to get the same amount of items at $2,500. So you're simply saying that we're looking at what $2,500 in today's dollars from 1995 to today would be $3,900. So we're just simply saying raise that level to $4,000. That cap $4,000.
And this is a newer area. We haven't heard a lot in this area. We've heard a lot in some of the other areas, so that's why I was asking the question.
Sure.
Do you have anybody here to support your House Bill 1817? Anybody that wishes to speak in favor?
Yes, the Governor's Office, Virginia Poverty Law Center, and other faith-based institutions.
Okay. I think the Poverty Law Center is right behind you there. Yes.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Dana Williams with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. What this bill does is actually increases the threshold, but it doesn't set a cap. So it doesn't say that it's capped at $4,000. It just says that the threshold for 36% goes from $2,500 to $4,000, which just helps raise it with. Obviously, inflation has made that a much larger. $2,500 of yesterday is not the same as $2,500 today. This particular bill is very limited in that it just deals with that amount that's capped at, that 36% would be $4,000 and under, and anything over that would just be whatever the parties agree to.
Okay, thank you.
And we support the bill and think that it provides some relief for consumers that would like to be able to purchase under this very important act.
companies that have also operated consumer finance businesses, and they have steered folks who came into their locations, have steered them to the consumer finance loans if they were taking out a loan for more than $2,500. Also being exploited by a number of internet companies. Your bill, House Bill 2310, would have addressed that. House Bill 1443, Delegate Farrell's bill, would address too. But this would close part of that loophole and provide for a more level playing field. We urge you to pass the bill.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the bill? Any opposition to the bill?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Smith, representing Virginia Financial Services Association. Delegate Hayes did an outstanding job in describing the history of the Consumer Finance Act, and he did a good job in our meetings together. He got it, and that's why I'm here today. I didn't realize that we had done such a good job back in the 90s creating the current structure. And as the Attorney General had mentioned, what has happened over the last few years is other lenders, not consumer finance companies, the traditional lenders that have been here forever, have entered the act and have begun making loans and grabbing different pieces of it. Your 2310, Mr. Chairman, that has been moved to a study is the perfect vehicle where this and other bills should go to address the specific issue. And that's internet lending. And that's what this is. There's not I'll grant it, it's been here since 2005 or 8 or whatever, but I don't know who had the epiphany all of a sudden to decide there needed to be a CPI adjustment in our act. So it's directly targeted to internet lending. There's no complaints, and I'll stand here corrected, from the traditional consumer finance companies that would cause this to move from 25 to 4. But I think if it's in the environment of your study outside this pace, we can develop a resolve to the issue. And we would ask that you not approve the bill.
Thank you. But you're not against it being looked at by Commissioner Face?
We supported your move.
Okay.
To create this work group outside of this environment.
Thank you.
Because you're going to have some more bills.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, anybody else wish to speak in favor of or against House Bill 1817? All right, thank you. And I think that one is one that probably does need to go to that study, because the bill that I had was, and Delegate Farrell's 1443 to Commissioner Face, we'll continue looking at a lot of these issues that are addressed by the internet loans. And I think, Delegate Hayes, that's what I'm inclined to do, and get you in, if you would like to be in on that working group, we'd be more than happy to have you there.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to serve.
Thank you. So if I have a motion to lay House Bill 1817 on the table, I have a motion and a second to lay it on the table with the understanding that I am going to include this in my letter to Commissioner Face to include it in the study. All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
No.
All right, one no. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I apologize for walking a little bit late during the break, but I just wanted to understand, what was the subcommittee that you were just talking about? I'm sorry, I missed that.
It was I had a bill dealing with internet lending, as well as Delegate Farrell has one, 1443, and I carried one for the commission that was not quite ready for prime time, and we decided that we would look at a study over the next year with Commissioner Face, getting some of the groups together, and that's what we're trying to do.
So even though this bill isn't about internet lending?
Well, yeah, I think that's where the big, some of the issues came about, because it dealt with a lot of folks that are using it under the consumer finance loans are using they're the internet lenders, so the ones that are trying to come out of this statute. I don't think the regular folks who have been using it, the consumer finance folks that we think, the ones we think of are using it. Is that right, Jeff?
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. And also to have, I think Delegate Farrell, right before, I think he laid his on the table in full committee, is that correct, 1443? All right, Delegate Yancey, where do you go? I thought you said he was right here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, first, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for your proposal to crack down on internet lending and as well as for your leadership in calling for the comprehensive reform with legislators, consumer advocates, and lenders to meet and discuss this matter, come up with a way to resolve the matter. Flattery. Nevertheless, you have given the opportunity for me to address this subcommittee for the last few years, and certainly am grateful for that opportunity, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, as you probably will aware, this legislation is very similar to legislation I passed, or excuse me, which I had introduced before. This is in regards to open-end credit plans. And Mr. Chairman and members, just as a recap, what this bill seeks to do is simply address four things: that the lender may not electronically debit the borrower's account, the lender is subject to the restrictions regarding harassment in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act when attempting to collect a debt. A loan cannot be made to a borrower who already has an outstanding open-end loan, and these restrictions apply to open-end loans made over the internet as well as loans made in Storefront, Virginia. Mr. Chairman and members.
Wait a minute, there's a substitute, sorry. Because best passing substitute, I didn't realize it was a substitute.
Be the first thing I passed in this subcommittee.
Do I have a motion that we adopt the substitute?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, okay.
So including with what you will read in the substitute, that is in essence what the bill seeks to do. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I just simply say this, that the open-end credit plans under the Virginia Code in 6.2-312 are left over from a law passed 40 years ago to accommodate credit card companies who may or may not, depending on what they choose to say, longer need the statute. But in 2017, open-end credit plans, typically at about a 200% interest, are loans made by former Virginia payday lenders and internet payday lenders who are trying to evade, in our opinion, Virginia's Payday Loan Act. Mr. Chairman of the subcommittee, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, but I have an idea as to where this is going and how it's going to go, so I would just simply say that as part of that commission that you are seeking to put together, I would just hope that we can also address this matter and close this loophole.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know somebody will speak quickly in favor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I also have some written copies of my comments.
Thank you.
Don't worry, they're not really long, just because they're written. Jay Spear with the Virginia Public Law Center. Over the last 15 years, I've been down here at the General Assembly, and we have struggled with the issue of how to deal with lenders who charge astronomical interest rates to struggling families in Virginia. And we basically, what the General Assembly has taken the approach that's been followed in the Payday Loan Act and then in the Motor Vehicle Title Loan Act, which is to allow these very high interest rates. And in fact, under the Payday Loan Act, the loans are 231% on average. Under the Car Title Loan Act, they're 221% on average. But the trade-off has been that we put some restrictions on these high-cost loans. And that's what Delegate Yancey's bill does here, is to take some of the restrictions straight out of the Payday and the Car Title Loan Act and put them on the online lenders, the line of credit lenders. And it's actually the word, I took these are word for word from those two statutes put into this statute. This bill does not seek to limit the interest rate. They can still charge very high interest rates, which is what they currently do. But it creates that trade-off where we put some reasonable restrictions on them. The restrictions that are in Delegate Yancey's bill are what we have found. People have told us when they call us. We have in my office, we have a predatory loan hotline. We have literally had hundreds of people call us about these loans and other types of loans. And I'll tell you that you can feel the pain of the people who call through the phone. They really suffer at the hands of some of these lenders. And so what I attached to my comments were some of the things that people have told us over the last year or so. And so in what I tried to get at were the issues that are addressed in Delegate Yancey's bill, which is the people getting into several loans at a time, people having their bank accounts debited and then they're overdrawing, they can't pay the rent, and people being harassed. I mean, the harassment sometimes can be unmerciful. All those things are addressed in the Payday and the Car Title Loan Act, and we're simply asking you to address this. Thank you.
This is his own, so, thank you.
See if it works.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Dave Urban, again with the Attorney General's office, we support the substitute version of the bill. Basically, this will make violations of the open-end credit plan statute enforceable through the Virginia Consumer Protection Act. That provides for governmental action and also for private rights of action. The provisions here, the limited provisions here are as others have indicated, drawn from the payday loan statute and the motor vehicle title loan statute, and just placing them here and providing some regulation for the open-end credit loans. Right now, this is a heavily unregulated product. There is no license requirement. There is no SEC oversight. There is no limitation on the interest rates that folks can charge. The only limited teeth that the statute has is it says you can't charge a finance charge. You have to give a 25-day finance charge grace period. We're aware right now that there are about 16 companies that are offering these loans in Virginia. 7 of those are brick and mortar establishments. Most of those are former payday lenders who abandoned or surrendered their license. 9 more companies we're aware of operate over the internet. The interest rates are pretty high. They run the gamut up to about 399%, and that doesn't even take into account the origination fees, participation fees, cash transaction fees, and other fees that are charged on these loans. Those would be dealt with in part with a bill that Delegate Farrell has that I think is on your docket. The most egregious example that we're aware of is a company called Advance Till Payday that has offered a $100 line of credit, and for the benefit of that $100 line of credit, you are charged an $80 a month participation fee. So over the course of the year, it would be $960, a 960% effective interest rate. This is the kind of the wild, wild west. Everything else, pawnbrokers, payday lenders, motor vehicle title lenders, even consumer finance loans up to $2,500. There is an interest rate limit and a cap. Here there is no cap. We urge you to adopt the bill and to put some teeth into this law.
The one thing, but when I'm reading this one, it says, you know, if you put loan somebody money and electronically debit, then if I read it right, then you violated the Consumer Protection Act fraud. Is that correct?
Right. That's my understanding too. Is this would pull over a prohibition that's in the payday loan law that prohibits electronic debits, and it would make that a violation here. I think you'll hear here. We heard it on the Senate side that these types of loans are excluded from the Virginia Consumer Protection Act, and I just want to say up front that we disagree with that conclusion. The exclusion that is in the Consumer Protection Act, or excuse me, that is in the Consumer Protection Act is for small loan companies regulated and supervised by the SEC. So what they're talking about there are the consumer finance companies.
So you can prosecute them now.
We can prosecute here under the Consumer Finance Act if somebody is violating the open-end credit law by, for example, charging a cash advance fee up front. If they're not giving that 25-day grace period, we can bring an action. I think when we were here last year, we had just brought an action against a company called MoneyKey that was operating over the internet and was doing that. They also were misrepresenting, and that's where we got the toehold we had under the Consumer Protection Act, because they were representing that they were licensed when they were not. So we had limited jurisdiction there that we used, but if someone is abiding by 6.2312, then we don't have an action that we can bring against them. We would if this law passes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anybody against the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Robert Barada here on behalf of Checking to Cash. We are an open-end lender here in Virginia. We have about 40 stores across the state. So to say that what is before you is a bill to make it more inconvenient for consumers and more expensive for consumers to access credit that they would not otherwise be able to access. And that's really the bottom line. It also, by placing it in the, Virginia, let me see what,
Consumer Protection Act.
the Protection Act, it really is, and my apologies to attorneys that are on the committee and in the room, but it is an Attorney Full Employment Act by giving it the consumers a private right of action on that. And again, that's going to just raise the cost of credit for those people that can't afford it now. And I urge you to reject the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Delegate Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
What's your motion? Motion laid on the table. Is there a second? All those in favor of laying on the table, none in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed?
No.
One no. Delegate, Farrell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really honored to be here for my first time to this fund subcommittee. There is a substitute,
Oh, okay.
and I'd actually have a...
Is your bill similar to the last bill we had?
No, I would actually say it's probably different from all the other ones you're going to see.
Okay. Do I have a motion we adopt the substitute?
And then,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's on
Mr. Chairman,
the front page here.
if you would humor me, there are actually two line amendments that I'd like to make. That's all right.
Okay.
Haven't reviewed it. This came at me at the last night. There are a couple things I think it got a little too broad. On line 18, after the word fees, strike from cash advance fees and any other charges or fees that are charged by the lender as additional compensation for the loan. And then the rest of the sentence would continue as it was. And then on line 20, that's it. That's actually the only change I'll make, and I can speak to that. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not here about the interest rates. I'm not here to put this in a different section of the code. The quick story that you heard about, and quite frankly, a lot of folks like those guys, clients over there, don't even do origination fees. Most of the good guys don't. You have a couple bad actors who are like, hey, it's only $200 and the interest is only 50%. But guess what? There's a little line under here that says I'm going to charge you $10 a month, and the interest compounds really high. So I just think, quite frankly, that's disingenuous and deceiving. And I understand it's hard to get credit, and I'm not here about the interest rate. I don't argue that these folks are riskier than other regular lenders. The interest rate should reflect that. So basically what this says is, I understand there may be a small cost to fill out a form and sign up somebody. So what I say is you can do origination fees, you can do participation fees, you can do membership fees, but it's not going to be more than 5% of the loan amount. So I actually view this as a narrow bill. I've heard one excuse why we should kill the bill. It's like, oh, the governor may use this to amend a bunch of other stuff. But as some of you who've been here longer than I am are aware of the rules of germaneness. And if you look at the title, this only has to do with origination fees. So anything to do with interest rates would not be germane. And I would fight the governor tooth and nail if he tried to ignore those rules. But actually, I have a communication from the governor's office a few weeks ago. They were actually hoping to do something like that to the bill, and they said it wouldn't be germane. So I don't really view that as a valid excuse to stop a couple bad guys from doing a very disingenuous thing that's really screwing a lot of people. So
Thank you. Anybody?
Mr. Chair, I think we need to adopt the line amendment that you just saw.
Oh, no, I make a motion. Did you make a motion?
Yeah, move the line amendment.
All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the line amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, that motion carries. And I'm sure the same folks for it? Yes. Okay.
I also have copies of my comments again. But again, it's not going to take long. Jay Spear with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. I thank W. Farrell for putting in this bill. It is very limited. It only goes after the fees that these folks are charging. And I'll tell you about a couple of clients that I've had. One, Dave Irvin from the Attorney General's office already spoke about, was a lady borrowed $100, and when she gets, they told her the interest rate was 0, but yet they were charging her an $80 per month, what they call a participation fee. And she had no idea that that's what she was getting into. She thought it was a one-time fee. I had another client who's also on my explanation here, Mr. Garrett, who had the same thing happen to him. Within a few months, he owed $320 on a $100 fee, on a $100 loan. And another one, one of my clients who got a loan from this company called Allied Cash Advance. Now, Allied Cash Advance is also a title lender, regulated car title lender, but they also do these line of credit loans. And they had him come in every single month for about 6 months and get a new loan every month. And they called them line of credit loans, but of course they really weren't. They were closed-end loans. What it really is a payday loan. But they call it a line of credit loan, and they're getting away with it. And they're getting away with him charging him a $100 origination fee every month. And so that's the kind of thing that this bill addresses, and I urge you to pass it.
Thank you. Is someone from the governor's office here?
No, but I have that email somewhere. I'll share it with you later.
Okay.
And again, if I thought that I was going to lose that battle, I would strike the bill at some point. I'd be happy to do that, to be a man of my word, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And the Attorney General's for his bill.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I will be brief and not repeat all of what I said before, but for all of the reasons that have already been stated, we support the bill. We would like it even more if the phrase cash advance fees stays in, but this will at least do something and will limit these extra fees that can be imposed, origination fees, annual membership fees, participation fees. For those reasons, we support the bill.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think it's important to note that I don't eliminate them. I just cap it at 5% of the amount of the loan. And just from my own world of business with lines of credit and whatnot, I understand there actually is a very minor cost for institutions to fill out a form. And that's why I actually took out the cash advance fee, because I know that there is a cost of wire money, which essentially what that is. So I wanted to be aware of real business practices. And if you talk to most of these people, the companies that have been in this here a long time, they're reputable, a lot of them don't even do this. So that's why the one excuse I got was, oh, the government amended. That's why I tried to tighten up with Frank to make sure it wouldn't be germane. So,
All right. Anybody against the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Robert Barata with Checking the Cash again. I'm going to make a few points and then I'm going to sit down. The first one is the advocates that are wanting these things are the ones that caused the problem in the first place. We had a product in Virginia called the payday loan that was very simple. It was $15 per 100, period. And now we've got these other products that the consumers are going to, and now we're getting all these bills, nickel and diming, trying to make them more expensive and less convenient. And I would just urge you to look at it in a holistic way if you're going to address this issue and not piecemeal. Thank you.
yeah, I understand what he's saying. I actually don't know if all this needs to be addressed in a holistic issue. I think there are a couple little practices that ought to be looked at from a narrow point of view. I mean, we can keep putting this off and off and off if you want, but there are some things and there are a couple of bad actors that do it. I think it's reasonable. I allow it to happen, understanding there's a cost, and I mean, making a 400% interest rate a little more expensive, I mean, I don't really buy that argument that much. So, for what that's worth.
Yeah. I understand, and you have drawn it narrow. I mean, the problem is, if you read the first part of it, open in credit plans, that, you could say that could open up to some other opportunities for some other bills, other language to come in. I don't know. So, I mean,
Mr. Chairman, all I can tell you is I've talked to a couple of folks about germaneness. They would it would not, from what I understand, it probably would not be germane to do anything with interest rates in it at all, because an interest rate is completely different than an origination fee. All about the title and the intent. You know that. I've heard Mr. Auerbach say that a lot. I've tried to fight that excuse as best I can, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate it, you did a good job.
So, I mean, I just think there really are just a few people that do this and they charge a ridiculous participation. I just think it's disingenuous, ridiculous, and it's not about lending people money that need it. And I understand the risk pool, and that's why the interest rates are higher, and I'm not addressing that at all.
Oh, I understand that. Yes.
Tell you, why are these bad actors able to stay in business? Why aren't there competitors who aren't doing it able to
Well,
drive that business?
I would get that argument to a point if a lot of people that are hunting for these products had quite frankly, the wherewithal and the time and the transportation and internet ability to shop for different products. A lot of the time they find the first sign on Broad Street and they want $100 to feed somebody, so they drive in as quickly as they can, and that's where they go. I don't think you have a lot of consumers that are spending a lot of time out there shopping, so the market doesn't work in the sense of the way a free market should. Give it a consumer demographic.
All right, thank you. Motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'd like to move to report.
Okay. Make a motion to lay on the table, do I have a second?
A second, with the understanding that this might be considered in the,
Yeah, I think the delegate brings up a,
I mean, it's totally different than the rest of what everyone
Yeah.
keeps talking about.
but it also, with some of the internet, some of the things that the commissioner face is gonna be looking at, I think it's something we can address, and I'm more than happy to have you on that, in that group to try to, get this addressed, so.
Mr. Chairman, I follow the will, I'm disappointed, but I follow the will of the committee.
All right. All right, so I have a motion to table. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Delegate Boulevard? Yeah, Delegate Simon, you're kind of last because yours is a whole different.
Good.
Good.
How do you think it together?
Yeah, Delegate Boulevard.
All right, thank you very much. This is House Bill 1620, and if you want narrow, Mr. Chairman, to the degree that matters, this is only 5 new words and 1 new code section, and I take out 3, so I think it's
Pick out 3 words.
they take out 3, so I think we got a net of
You got 2 words?
a net of 3 things in there. So, anyways,
Is there a substitute or not? No?
nope,
Okay.
it's just that simple.
So what are you trying to do?
All right, so, Mr. Chairman, this could basically be called the Please Stay in Your Lane bill. And I know that y'all are very aware of the problems with open-ended credit plans. You've heard about them here, you've heard about them before, and I've got some folks who will come up and testify again on that. My own personal experience with this actually started back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I was the chair of the Fairfax County Consumer Protection Commission when a lot of these high-interest businesses started locating down near our military bases at Quantico, at Fort Belvoir. It became so bad that actually the military had to step in order to protect their service members. And so as somebody who comes from a military family myself, that was extraordinarily distressing. When we established the Virginia Payday Loan Act, we did attempt to provide some basic consumer protections with that. Even then, Mr. Chairman, there were businesses who tried to get around even those very basic protections by offering those open-ended credit plans. In response, we, this General Assembly, went ahead and passed legislation basically saying that if you're a payday lender, that you can't also be a provider of open-ended credit within your store. So essentially, we had already said, please stay in your lane. Now we've got the Motor Vehicle Title Loan Act, which also sets up its own separate regulatory scheme, provides some basic protections. You can argue about whether those are strong enough or not, but they are basically regulated as a specific entity. But just like what we saw with payday lenders, we were seeing people trying to get around that, either with bait and switch. So you bring them in with the prospect of a car title loan, and it winds up being a more expensive open-ended credit plan, or even worse, once you've exhausted your options on the car title plan, being able to turn it over and say, hey, we can loan you some money to go ahead and get off the hook with that. Mr. Chairman, what this bill simply does is do for car title loans exactly what we've done for our payday lenders. We've already declared the policy of the Commonwealth these things shouldn't be co-locating. So the question you should be asking yourself, or I hope you'd ask yourself, is why should car title lenders be treated any different than payday lenders when it comes to this issue? So again, I got some folks here, but really appreciate your consideration on this issue.
I think you have it. Yes, yes, ma'am, come forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm Brumley Johnson, Deputy Secretary of Transportation on loan policy, and we are in favor of this bill, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Dana Wiggins with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. For all of the reasons that Delegate stated, we're in favor of this bill. We feel like the same restriction should be on all of similar types of lending. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Chairman, Dave Irvin again, for all of the reasons that have already been stated, we support this bill as well. Believe this is the exact same issue as Delegate Bullock indicated that you've already dealt with twice before. Once when dealing with payday loan licensees in 2009, I believe, and then last year there were efforts to limit the ability of motor vehicle title lenders to make consumer finance loans in the same location. A bill did not go through, but the conduct stopped, and I believe Commissioner Face has confirmed that to you right now, that there are 5 motor vehicle title lenders that are also offering this product. This would limit this and allow, as Delegate Bulova indicated, require folks to stay in their own lanes. We support the bill and urge you to support it. Passing.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Robert Barrett again with Check into Cash. I'll just say we are opposed to this bill primarily because it is not bait and switch. The first thing I will tell you is that for any lender, the best loan that you can lend is something that's secured. And so the thought that somebody would come in for a secured loan and you direct them to an unsecured loan doesn't make any business sense at all. The other is that making you have 2 separate locations to do these, it just raises the cost of doing business, which then raises the cost to consumers to get this kind of credit that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, committee breaks on motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move to report the bill.
All right. No second. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
All right, Delegate Levine. Lay on the table. All those, have a second? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Delegate Levine, House Bill 2445.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I won't repeat what's been said before. My bill also deals with open-ended credit loans. We've heard all the problems with them. If we're looking for narrowness and modesty, I would argue mine is the narrowest and most modest of all, in that it doesn't chase interest rates, doesn't ban practices, doesn't have origination fees. All it does is licenses them. Because every single loan in Virginia, they can charge over 12%. Every loan that has an unlimited interest rate is licensed by someone, either by Virginia or by the federal authorities. All this bill does, and it was actually Gordon Helsel's idea 4 years ago, and he's a co-patron of this bill, Delegate Helsel. All it does is say, let's license them so that if there are complaints, people have a place to go and complain. It is the Wild West. This does include internet bills. I'd be happy to work with anyone during session if this committee doesn't go forward today to talk about how these are done. But again, it doesn't restrict them, it just licenses them so we can watch them, and all these out-of-state actors coming in and mistreating Virginians, at least we can find out what they're doing. I do have a number of people in support. They're probably the same people you've heard before.
Okay. Thank you. Come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Dana Williams with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. I just wanted to add that we believe that this would, while we would prefer things that do more. I think this, at least, at the very least, means that we'll know who's actually doing these loans in the state. We actually have no idea how many lenders are actually operating on with doing open-ended credit. We know some through a lot of our people on our hotline, but there's no way for us to know exactly how many. And also, there are a lot of people who have asked us where can they file complaints, and they cannot necessarily, and some people have been rejected from filing complaints in other areas because there's no place to complain to, because they're not licensed by anybody. So this would just allow us to know who the actors are, especially the ones who are doing it from outside the state. We know some of the ones in the state, but we'd actually have no real clue as to exactly how many locations, how many lenders, and there's no place for people to file complaints to. Not that there wouldn't be any regulations under this, but it would just require licensure.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, you might as well just stay up here.
And I will be even more brief this time, Mr. Chairman. Dave Urban again with the Attorney General's Office for the reasons that the delegate has stated and that Dana has stated. We support the bill. This would require folks to be licensed, as I indicated before. We're aware of 16 companies. I suspect that number is only going to grow. It has grown over the past few years, and as long as this loophole is out there, it will continue to grow. For those reasons, we support this bill as a necessary first step. Thank you for your consideration.
Yes. Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Robert Brotto, Check Into Cash. We stand in opposition to the bill. The bill does more than licensure, and I'll direct your attention on page 1, the lines 15 through 23, where it changes the definition of what an open-end loan is. Also, if you look on the back pages, it also makes these types of loans subject to the Virginia Consumer Protection Act that we spoke against in an earlier bill. And that's and I'll go on, but those two things were not addressed, and they are in the bill.
Thank you.
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, the only violation of the Consumer Protection Act would be if you don't license. If you do this work and you don't license. So that would be the violation, that you have to be licensed. The part that it changes basically says you can still do purchase money loans, you just can't do open-ended credit loans.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Have a motion?
Move the board, Mr. Chairman.
Prior to what I expect is going to happen, I would ask if this committee chooses to table the bill, that perhaps a letter could go out from Mr. Chairman that I can be included in the working group on this bill.
Okay. Motion second by on table. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And we'll, I think you would be, your bill may be included in that, Commissioner Faye's study, because it's a little bit, it's cracking down on his, looking at internet loans and things like that. So we'll figure that out.
Thank
you. All right, now, last one is Delegate Simon, and I believe there's a substitute.
There is something. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you ready?
Everybody got one? Yeah, we asked for a physical impact, yeah. Is the, what, okay. One second here, trying to get it on. I have a motion to adopt substitute given the course. So moved.